What's up, guys? Douglas from Dougsterbob.com here, and today we are looking at every single 2022 Sunday Complete BMX bike. Everything in the 20-inch area. We don't really care about the 22s, the 26s, the 18s, the 16s, because they're all pretty much the same. The 20-inch bikes are focused on progressing you as a bike rider, learning tricks, competing, having fun, doing whatever you need to do in BMX. And so we're going to be talking about them all the way from the Sunday Blueprint to the Sunday Soundwave, the $300 and something bike to the $1,300 bike. There's so much information in here, and here we go. The 2022 Sunday Blueprint is $389. It's almost $400, and it's in stock right now on Danscomp and a few other websites. You can click the link in the description to pick it up from Danscomp if you decide that this is the right bike for you. Now, the quality of the Blueprint, like I said, it's a little bit disappointing to me. Here's the deal. This bike is full high tensile steel, and if you guys have been following me for a while, you know why this is a bad thing. High tensile steel is a lot weaker than chromoly. It's cheaper, but it's also weaker. And what happens when you ride weaker materials, guys, we put a lot of stress on our bikes. We crash them, we throw them, we fall, a lot of things happen, and you want a high quality bike that's not going to bend and not going to break. So if you do see yourself eventually riding at a mid-level, you should plan for a full chromoly bike, because this high tensile steel bike is going to break. The back end's going to bend as you progress. It's just something that happens, so keep that in mind. The rims are both single wall. Again, double wall is the preferred quality option for rims. Single wall rims are a lot cheaper and a lot weaker. They bend when you case things. When you're learning spins, you're going to bend the wheels. And the reason I'm saying this is because I've been there. I've bent wheels, I've bent frames, I've knocked myself out on these lower end bikes, and it's fine. You can always upgrade it, but if you plan to get to that level eventually and you have the budget, spend a little more money and get something more high quality. The Blueprint does not come with pegs, and it weighs right at about 26 pounds. So in all honesty, this is a fairly light bike. No pegs, no free coaster, so it is on a cassette. The bars are high tensile steel, the forks are high tensile steel. There's not hardly any aftermarket parts. It does come with brakes, so that's cool. You might want to take your brakes off, and they're fully removable. However, okay, so we're talking about quality, right? This bike is not very high quality, as we've discussed, and I do think $389 is slightly overpriced. 2022 bikes prices went up, but that's a different story. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, what I'm getting at is the cool thing about this bike is it's fully customizable. So let's say that you get this bike, you're riding for a little bit, you crash and you bend your forks. You jump a huge dirt jump, you nose case it, and you bend your forks. That sucks. You're probably going to be hurt for a little bit, some bumps, some bruises. But the cool thing here is that you're going to be able to go on to anywhere, buy some forks, and then replace them with these forks. Everything on this bike is fully customizable. So if you find yourself in a spot where you want a different color, you want to upgrade something breaks, you just want new parts, you can buy it and you can upgrade it. Let's say you get a really cheap Mongoose or something from Walmart. It's not fully customizable. The sizes they use for different things, the compression system, there's a lot of different things that don't line up. So you're going to end up retrofitting it or just getting a new bike. So that is a pro of this bike, is that you can get it because it's available, because there's not very many other options right now at the time of making the video, and upgrade it as you progress, as you learn. So that's an option, but it's not very good quality. Now let's talk about the geometry. Let's talk about the different sizes and dimensions of the Sunday Blueprint. The head tube angle is 75 degrees. This is normal, nothing crazy here. The top tube, like I mentioned before, comes in two sizes. It comes in a 20.00 and it comes in a 20.5. So the 20.00 is really good for riders who are, right at that 410 to, 5.3, 5.4. when you're 410, you're just switching out from an 18 inch. So it's really hard to find half decent 20 inch wheel bikes with a 20 inch top tube for those smaller riders who are transitioning. Fortunately, that's kind of one thing that the Blueprint specializes in. Not many bikes come in a 20.00 inch top tube, so it makes that really hard for them to find a bike after moving up. So that's a good option in that size top tube. If you get the 20.5 inch top tube, you want to be around 5'3" to about 5'6". I have an in-depth size guide on my website. You can click your height and it shows you how different sizes are going to affect your riding, because a bigger top tube has a different effect on your style than a smaller top tube, if that makes any sense. So check that out, but that's kind of the top tube size. The chainstay size is a 13.2 to 13.5. So depending on where your wheel's at in that chainstay or in that, dropout area, it's going to be either 13.2 if you slam it, 13.5 if you pull it out all the way. This is a fairly long chainstay. I say right around 13 inches is about normal now. Now, back in the day, it didn't used to be. Back in the day, it used to be way longer. But right now, modern geometry, average is about 13 inches. So this bike is a little bit longer of a chainstay. What this is going to do for you is this is going to make spins a little bit harder. It's going to make manuals harder to initiate, like harder to pick up and get into the balance point, but they're going to be a lot easier to control once you're in that balance point. Generally, beginner bikes have a longer chainstay because it's a lot easier for a newer rider to feel out the geometry and to feel comfortable on the bike when they're learning BMX. Once you get into more of a steep geometry, you're starting to progress a lot harder. You really want spins, you want snappy, responsive feeling. So this is okay that it's 13.2 inches to 13.5. And that's really it for the geometry. Nothing else too crazy. The standover height is 8.75. And again, this is about average. It's not going to affect very much. Really specific park bikes run a really slam really slam standover height, like 7 inches or something, 7.75. And over 9 gives you a lot more of a stable feeling. So right at 8.75, you're not going to notice that much of a difference. So I created a BMX bike scoring system. This is called the Dougsterbob score, and it's accumulation of a ton of different aspects of a BMX bike, and it tells you how it ranks in different areas. So let's say you're a street-specific rider and you're looking into the blueprint. Well, it'll be easy to tell if this is a very good bike for you or not. You can download the score sheet with the link in the description, and it has like over 80 different bikes listed and their scores broken down. But I want to talk about the blueprint scores. So in the street section, it scored a 1.75. That's not good because this is out of 10. So it's basically a 2 out of 10. The reason it scored so low is it did not come with pegs. It did not come with hub guards. There's no free coaster. And well, to be honest, the quality is not good enough to withstand big drops and big gaps. So basically, if you're a street rider and you're starting to progress in the streets, you're going to need pegs. You're going to need hub guards. And I'd say 90% of people are going to want a free coaster. This bike comes with none of that. Granted, you can always add those things, but right out of the box, you don't get any of that. So that's why I scored 1.75 out of street. Now in the park section, it scored about a 3. So a 2 in the street, a 3 in the park. Not very good. Again, this is a lower quality bike. It has gyro tabs drilled so you can put a gyro on it, but it doesn't come with a gyro brake system. The standover height is kind of small, but it's not super responsive. The chainstay is not responsive. The head tube angle is not responsive. There's nothing there making it really park specific. As far as aftermarket parts, you don't get anything park specific there. The tires are okay for park, but they're not great. They're just entry level tires. Overall, the bike isn't made for park either. Just a quick rundown of all the scores. It's like a 2 in the street, a 3 in the park, a 3 in dirt. So it's low quality and it scored low on all 3 sections. So generally what you'd want to do with a bike like this is ride a little bit of each. Like I said, in the dirt section, this bike did score a 3 also. Dirt, we want really stable and controlled type geometry. So we're looking for like a 74.5 degree 74.5 degree head tube angle, a longer chainstay, which it does have, a taller standover. We want dirt specific tires. We want dirt gearing. We want a brake, we want a handful of things that make it really dirt specific. The only thing this bike has going for it is the 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay, which, like I mentioned before, gives you some extra stability and gives you a more comfortable feel. So flowing dirt jumps is going to feel more stable on this bike because of that back end, but you're not going to notice a huge difference. This is a well-rounded bike because it's pretty much the same for street, park, and dirt. So basically, let's say that you ride a little bit of everything and you decide that street is your true calling. You love riding street. You have so much fun riding street. So you're going to go out, you're going to buy pegs, you're going to buy hub guards, and you're going to buy a free coaster. You're going to throw them on the blueprint. And now that bike's ranking probably like a 7 out of 10 for street and, a 3 for park and a 3 for dirt. So that's awesome. You're able to just upgrade this bike to go towards what you want to ride. Now, I know we already talked about quality, but there is a quality score. This bike scored a 1. So a 1 out of 10. It's the lowest of the low. Like, you can't really get any lower than this except a Walmart bike, but we don't really talk about those. Full high tensile steel, single wall rims, no aftermarket parts. There's not much quality here, and yeah, that's all you could really say about it. Scored a 1 in quality. It's not very good quality wise. Now the overall Dougsterbob score is about a 3, which kind of averages out everything else that this bike scored. A few other things go into it, but a 3 is not very good. It's pretty much the lowest Dougsterbob score there is. Some bikes get a little lower, some bikes get quite a bit higher, but this one only scored a 3. Now, I want to talk with you guys for a little bit about some potential issues that you might run into with the blueprint. Now, because of the low quality, don't expect the parts to last very long. Depending on your progression and depending on your weight isn't something that's really talked about in BMX. We generally talk about height a lot. But for me, when I was riding these high tensile steel bikes, I probably weighed about 180 pounds. I'm a big dude. And I was breaking these parts a lot quicker than my friends. So high tensile steel for someone who's 4'10" and like 100 pounds just getting into the sport, you're not going to really thrash this bike. However, someone 150 to 180 pounds getting on this bike, you're going to bend things, you're going to break things just as you get better and as you put it through more stuff. So keep that in mind. One big issue I see is the parts just not lasting. The back end could bend as you start to learn spins. The wheels could ding as you learn spins, as you do bigger drops. And then the only other thing is that this bike isn't really specific for anything. So if you have it set in your mind that you're going to be a park rider, let's get you a park specific bike. Let's not get you this and worry about upgrading. Let's get you a park specific bike so that you don't get the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Now let's talk about who the Sunday Blueprint is for. Like I said, it's not for very many people, but the person that I imagine buying the Blueprint goes like this. So they're just starting out in BMX. They're between 4'10", they're between 5'6", anywhere in between there. They only have about a $400 budget, and they're not sure where they plan to go with BMX. So they just their friends probably ride BMX. They want to test it out. They want to get on a bike, but they don't have any long-term goals. They don't have dreams of becoming a pro rider. So they're going to get this bike. They're going to dabble in it for a little bit. They're going to ride a little bit of street, a little bit of park, a little bit of dirt, and that's about it. So well-rounded, someone just getting into the sport without long-term goals, $400 budget, 4'10" to 5'6". So would I actually recommend this bike? The quick answer is yes, but it depends. I really recommend it for people who are 4'10", looking for a good transition bike to go from 18-inch to 20-inch, just because it's really, really, really important to get a 20.00-inch top tube when you're that small. If you get on something a little bigger, you're going to be really discouraged and it's going to be really hard to progress. So if you're looking at this for your kid and your kid's around that size, this is a good choice. Just make sure you get the right top tube size. Other than that, I'd say yes and no. I'd say yes if you really fit the description above, which not many people will. I think this would be an okay choice, but I'm always honest with you. I think this bike is a little bit overpriced. I think $389 is too much. This is like a $329 bike. Um, it's a little overpriced. That's all I can say. If you want something better, there might be a better option out there, but all bikes might be overpriced right now for 2022. Maybe you can find a 2021 model on sale, even though they're all sold out. I don't know. I do think this is a little overpriced. And now here's the thing. It's so much more important to just get a bike and start progressing than wait for like 6 months and never actually find the bike. So while it is overpriced, it's probably a better option just to jump on it and get it and start progressing and then upgrading it as you go. Here are a few really important things that you need to know about the Sunday Primer. This is a beginner level bike. It's not very high quality. It's a little over $400, so I think it's slightly overpriced. And it doesn't come with any pegs, hub guards, free coaster. It doesn't come with anything dirt specific, park specific. It's just a really general, basic bike. Someone wants to get on it for the first time and get into BMX, this is an okay choice, but this bike's not right for everybody. Here's the thing, the 2022 Sunday Primer costs $429. It's a little over that $400 price point, and it's in stock on Dan's Comp. So I saw it there. You can check it out. Link in the bio. We'll send you over there to buy it. Now, I really do want to talk about the sizing and the color options. We'll dive deeper in the sizing in in the geometry section, but for now, this bike comes in a 20.00 inch top tube. So if you're familiar with the blueprint, that was a pro for me, is that the blueprint came in that size. It comes in a 20.5 inch top tube, a 20.75, and a 21 inch top tube. So you have a lot of different options there. It also comes in 4 different color options. You can check that out on my review page or on the product page. But one thing that's interesting is that each color option is tied to a size option. So if you want the 21 inch in green, but it only comes in 20.5, you're only going to be able to get green in 20.5. Like, you can't mix and match like you can with other bikes. You know, sometimes you can get a 20.5 in black, red, and purple, and then also a 21 in black, red, and purple. That's not how it's working with Sunday's 2022 lines, which is slightly disappointing. So you guys know I always stress it's so important to get the right size top tube. So please check out the size guide on my website and get the right size. Don't buy a 20.00 if you're 6'1". You're gonna have the worst time learning, and it's not gonna work for you. So make sure you check out the size guide and make sure you get the right size if you decide to buy this bike. All right, so let's talk about the primer's quality. The quality of this bike, like I already mentioned, is not very good. Now, it's not the worst, but it's really pretty close. It has a high tensile steel frame, has high tensile steel forks, high tensile steel bars, single wall rims. It doesn't come with anything really aftermarket like the Sunday freeze stem, but that's on every single bike that they have. There's nothing making this bike really stand out. And like I already said, it costs $430 and it doesn't have quality. So I don't know. We'll get more in depth here towards the end of this video, but I just think that that's overpriced. I just think it's not very good quality for the price you're paying. It has an unsealed front wheel, but it does have a sealed cassette in the back, which is okay. This bike weighs 25.8 pounds and it does not come with any pegs or any hub guards. All right, so let's run through the geometry. Like I said, 20.00 inch top tube, 20.5, 20.75, and 21 inch top tube. This is going to help you get the right size. So like I already ranted about that. Make sure it's the right size. Please, please, please don't buy the wrong size, because I will be sad. You'll be sad. I'll be sad. Like, everyone will be sad. It's not worth it. The chainstay comes in a 13.2 to 13.5. So basically, if you run it slammed, it's going to be 13.2. If you run it all the way back, it's going to be 13.5, just like the Sunday blueprint. The head tube angle is a standard 75-degree head tube angle. It's not steep and it's not mellow. It's right there in the middle. And then the standover height is 8.75. So this is a general standover. I mean, I say right at about 9 inches is average. So this is a little bit smaller, but it's not small enough to make a difference. All right, let's run through the Dougsterbob scores. So first section is going to be the street section, and it scored about a 2. Is this a good score? Not really. Most bikes, most beginner level bikes are right around here at this 1.75 or at the 2 because they don't have any pegs, they don't have any hub guards, they don't have any aftermarket quality. They're not going to be strong enough to withstand big drops and big gaps. Overall, it's just like the bare basic bike. So you can get it, you can ride street, and you can upgrade parts. But right out of the box, it's not going to come ready for street like the Sabrosa Letum or the Kink Switch. Now, the Sunday Primer scored about a 3 in the park section. It's not very responsive. We like to see a really responsive geometry. We like to see park-specific tires and a gyro. So all of those things make a bike pretty park-specific. The Primer does not come with any of that. However, there's tabs drilled so you can put a gyro on it if you want. And that's really about it. Now there is a Primer Park option. We're talking about that later in a different video. But for now, the Primer as it comes didn't score very high in park specificity. So in the dirt section, this bike scored close to a 3. It's not very good for dirt. It's not very good for park. It's not very good for dirt. It's a or for street. It's a bare minimum bike without a lot of quality. You don't see the really big and stable geometry like I like to see for dirt specific bikes. There's no dirt specific gearing. There's no dirt specific tires. So it could always improve in any of those areas. And one cool thing about the bike is that you can actually improve it yourself. So let's say you fall in love with street riding or park riding and you want to upgrade the bike, you can get a gyro, you can get park specific tires, you can tune the bike towards what kind of riding you enjoy. But for now, as it sits, it's for someone who really just wants to test out all three things. They just want to start out, they want to try a little street, try a little park, try a little dirt, and see which one they really love. Now, I know that we already talked about quality, but again, just to recap, this bike only scored a 1 in the quality section. There's a lot that it could do better. For example, it could have full chromoly. I think full chromoly is the best way to go. High tensile steel is going to bend. High tensile steel is going to break. It could have double wall rims. It could have fully sealed everything. There's so much more that this bike needs to be good quality. I want to rant real quick about the high tensile steel. So this bike comes in high tensile steel, and if you're a heavier rider, you're going to break it. We talked about this on the blueprint, but same thing. Look, if you're anywhere from like 150 to 200 or even higher, I guess, that extra weight with the extra stress of riding and progressing and doing drops and doing gaps, it's going to thrash high tensile steel. Now, if you're 4'10", you weigh 100 pounds, it's not going to be bad. Like, you're not going to put a beating on the bike. But if you're a heavier guy like me, when I was riding those bikes, I was destroying them a lot quicker than my friends because I was just so much bigger. So take that into consideration. This low quality is, bad if you're an average sized person and a little heavier. If you're just really light or you're shopping for your kid, the low quality score isn't really going to be that big of a deal, especially if someone's growing, because they're going to grow out of the bike and you're going to get a new one anyway. Now, the Sunday Primer scored a 3 in the Dougsterbob score. This is basically just an accumulation of everything and with some added bonus features that bikes can score higher on, or it could hurt them. It's a low score, so it's a beginner level bike. It's a low score. It's a kind of high price, honestly, but we'll talk about that later. That's how it scored on all the scores. Let's move in and talk about who this bike is for. All right, so the Primer is going to be for someone who is just starting out. This would be a really good first bike. And a great alternative to like a Walmart bike, a bike from Walmart, a department store bike, to something really low quality. The Primer is going to be a really great alternative. So if you're just starting out, you need something under $450. This is going to be the bike for you. Now, keep in mind, like I said, it's not specific for any type of riding. So the rider who gets this is going to be testing out street, testing out dirt, testing out park, to see what they really enjoy and what type of riding is best for them. The potential issues that I see with the Primer are the same as the blueprint. I think that this bike is low quality And if you get on it and you progress too fast or you weigh too much, you're going to have a hard time with it. Parts are going to break. It's not going to last you forever. And I just want you to be prepared for that. Now, I already mentioned you can upgrade this bike. So if you get it and things break, it's not the end of the world. Just buy some new parts and upgrade it. You'll be fine. You'll be able to progress, and you're fine. You know, everything's good, but the parts breaking is definitely a big issue that I see. Now, the real question, would I recommend this bike? And the quick answer is going to be no. I'm always straight up with you guys. I think genuinely that it's overpriced. I think that this is like a, yeah, I don't know, $400 bike, if that, $390 bike. I think 430 is too much for a complete entry level bike with high tensile steel and like just low quality. Sunday's a great brand. I love Sunday. I love their aftermarket parts, but for a beginner level bike with this amount of quality, I think this is overpriced. So I'm going to say I don't recommend it. However, the stipulation does apply that if you are a brand new rider, you're a lighter rider, you need a 20.00 inch top tube or smaller bike, and you're just starting out, you're not sure what you're going to ride, you want to dabble in everything, this is going to be an okay choice for you. Now, the Primer Park is a bike for people who are new to the sport and want to test out park riding. It looks cool with the gyro. It's got a really compact frame. The geometry is really snappy, really responsive, and it's going to feel good riding bowls, but not going very high and fast. So the park edition of the Primer is significantly different than the normal Primer version. This only comes in one color and one top tube size. It comes with a gyro, and it comes with really, really responsive geometry. The quality is not the best, and it costs $450. So $30 extra, you know, $30 more than the normal Primer version. So this bike's for people who want to learn triple tail. No, I'm just kidding. I saw a meme on Instagram, and it's like bar whip pros, you know, describing Mr. Krabs, and it's a picture of this guy interviewing Mr. Krabs. Okay, bar whip pros is Mr. Krabs, and then he says, "What are your BMX goals?" And then Mr. Krabs, the bar whip pro, says, "I like money." And it's so funny because that's really the only aspect of BMX that is in the Olympics. So if you're coming here from watching the Olympics, like you watch the Olympics, you're like, oh my God, I need to get into BMX. And now you're going to get this Primer bike. I guess it's the one for you. You know, this is designed to be doing the tricks that those guys are doing, just at the really small scale. I have a couple more stories about this bike, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's get right into the quality of the bike. So the Primer Park doesn't vary very much from the Primer in terms of quality. It's a high tensile steel frame, single wall rims, high tensile steel bars, high tensile steel forks, no pegs, no hub guards. It does have a gyro, so that's cool, and it weighs 25.8 pounds, right around 26 pounds. This low quality bothers me because, like I said at the beginning, people who get into this sport aim at this bike to do tricks like bar spins and tail whips and truck drivers and 720s and really technical park tricks. And that's what it's designed for. That's what the geometry is designed for. That's what the makeup is designed for. But the quality of the bike is beginner level quality. Those are mid to high level tricks. It's a huge mismatch, and the bike will not withstand to that level of riding. I have a friend in El Paso, John, if you're watching this, you're a killer. But he got the Primer Park, okay? And I was like, okay, it's like a half decent bike, you know, high tensile steel, but he was a beginner. This man's had a foam pit at his house and learned flips, learned 180 bars, is like working on tails. He got really good really fast. And in a really short amount of time, he outgrew this bike. He was breaking things left and right, so he ultimately had to upgrade to like a fully custom bike. But it worked out really good for him when he was just starting out. However, as he progressed to that level of riding that the bike's actually designed for, it didn't last for him. So keep that in mind while you're thinking about what to get. It's a low quality bike, and if you're riding at a mid to high level, this is not going to last for you, and plan on spending a lot of money on upgrades. So when we talk about geometry, park especially, you want to see really snappy and really responsive geometry. So this bike has only comes in a 20.5-inch top tube. It has a 75.5-degree head tube angle. So the head tube angle normally 75. 75.5 is going to make it half a degree steeper, which makes it more snappy with steering and a lot more responsive. It has a 7.75-inch standover height, which is a lot lower than most bikes. Most bikes are around a 9. And then it also has a 12.7 to 13-inch chainstay. So the primer version is like a 9-inch standover or 8.75-inch standover, a 13.2 to 13.5-inch chainstay, and a 75-degree head tube angle. So you can just tell from just that this bike is a lot more compact and a lot more responsive, like I've said before, aimed at those technical park tricks. But basically, in the street section, the primer part got a 1.25. We're going to round down to a 1 for the video. It only got a 1 in street. This is because it doesn't have pegs, it doesn't have hub guards, there's no free coaster, there's nothing street about it, right? It's a primer park, so obviously it's going to score low in street, and it's not designed for street. So if that's your calling in life, quit watching. You've wasted however long this is. Quit watching the video. Go watch a different video. This is not for you. The park section, however, the primer scored a 5.67. We're going to round that up to 6. So a 6 out of 10, significantly better than a lot of BMX bikes. Most bikes are not park specific. When I'm grading park specificity, I look for really responsive bikes. I look for good park tires. I look for a gyro. This has most of those things. It could do better, but it's really good for park. It's not the best, not as good as the We the People Versus, but it's really good. In the dirt section, it got a 2.67. We're going to round that up to a 3. In the dirt, we want dirt specific gearing like 3010. We want a 74.5 degree inch head tube angle, and we want really big and mellow geometry. So this is kind of the opposite. Granted, that's why it scored so low. However, instead of getting a 1, it got a 3, because this is a good bike for learning like pump track skills and small dirt jumps. Where that big geometry really comes into play is when you're going really high and really fast and you need your bike to feel stable. At the beginner level on this bike, you're not going to feel anything like that. So I would say it's good for moderate technical dirt riding, but nothing like trail gods like Mike Hucker or anything like that. Now, the quality section, just like the normal primer, it got a 1. Not full chromoly, no chromoly period. The bars, frame, forks, everything's high tensile steel. Single wall rims, unsealed front rim, virtually no aftermarket parts. There's nothing good about this bike in terms of quality. It's just an entry-level BMX bike, so there you go. Now the Dougsterbob score got a 2.85, very low. Again, just signs of an entry-level BMX bike designed for beginners. Some bikes are going to score a lot higher, but not many bikes score this low. It's pretty low. It's sadly low. Now I want to talk about some potential issues that you're going to have if you buy the primer. So like I've already mentioned, this is a very low quality bike. As you progress, if you progress like John did, parts are going to break and you're going to have to replace parts. Now, there's nothing against this because everything is fully customizable. You're going to be able to buy new handlebars, right? And they're going to fit right on there. Buy new cranks, they're probably going to fit on there if you have the right bottom bracket. But you're going to be able to upgrade it as you go. So this is cool. But if you buy this bike with the end goal of like never having to upgrade a part, you're absolutely out of your mind. This low quality of a bike is going to break. Even $600 bikes break to a mid-level rider after riding for a while. It just happens. I feel like BMX companies would go out of business if people never broke stuff. So I think it's planned in there. But what I'm saying is, for this low quality of a bike, things are going to break, and that's a huge potential issue that I see. Another potential issue is obviously it's not going to be good if you're if you're a dirt or a street specific rider. If you've already tested out BMX and you've fallen in love with either of those two, look for a better bike. The Fit Trail is designed for dirt. The Sunday or Sabrosa Letum or the Sunday X is better for street. There's a lot of different options that you can get that aren't park specific. And I'm sure you know this because I told you to quit watching the video at the park section. Anyway, that is the potential issues that I see with this bike. So after explaining all of this about the bike, who do you think this bike is designed for? Well, obviously, a brand new rider. If you have any level of experience and you're already doing tricks, this isn't the bike for you. If you're brand new to the sport and you're a smaller guy that would fit on the 20.5-inch top tube, this could be the bike for you. Just make sure that you're really interested in riding skate parks. If you don't even have a skate park in your town and you just ride street, this is not for you. So it's going to be for a brand new rider, minimal BMX experience, who has $450 in the bank, and they love riding skate parks. They want to do tricks like foofanoos and air to fakies and disasters and things like that that are beginner level park tricks. So would I recommend the 2022 Sunday Primer Park? Yes, if you're a brand new park specific rider. If you're already riding at a mid-level, I feel like this bike is a little overpriced. But that's a common thing with all of the 2022 bikes. They're going to be a little more expensive than normal, but this is a good beginner level bike for someone who wants to ride entry level park. You're not going to be able to do whips and bars and flips on this bike. It's not going to last. But if you're just getting into it and you're going to start, man, it takes a long time to progress to that level. So on your journey there, while you're progressing, this will be an okay bike for you to learn those skills. But if you're not in love with park and you're kind of dabbling in everything, this bike is not for you, and I do not recommend it. So this is a step up from the Sunday Primer, but a step down from the Sunday Forecaster. There's a couple different options here, but it only has one chromoly piece of tubing. Like, all right, so the Sunday Scout comes in two different top tube size options and four different color options. It has a 20.75-inch top tube and a 21-inch top tube, so it's on the bigger end of things. Has a teeny tiny bit of chromoly. It's a little bit responsive, but it's pretty much the same. There's only one piece that is actually responsive technically, and we'll talk about that in the geometry section. But this bike is not great. I feel like it's a little overpriced. It's almost $500, and it's not the best, but let's dive into it. So like I said, it costs $479 for two of the versions, or $499 for the other two versions. So there's a 21-inch option that comes with two-piece bars. It comes in a matte army green, and then there's a 20.75 version with two-piece bars that comes in a gloss black. Now, those are the bikes that cost $479. If you want the four-piece version, those are the ones that cost $499. And those two options are a 21-inch matte raw color 21-inch top tube, or a 20.75-inch translucent purple. Those are both four-piece bars, okay? And so those are the prices, $479 to $499. Very expensive, right at that $500 price point. And I really, really like to see bikes hit that $500 price point and have full chromoly and double wall rims. So I'm a little disappointed here, but let's roll right into the quality. This is one of the reasons that I'm very disappointed. It has pretty much full high tensile steel frame. Okay. It has one chromoly down tube, which is cool because I'll pop up a picture on the screen, but essentially I nose cased and the whole front end of my bike caved in like this. It was high tensile steel. So ideally, if it's chromoly down tube, that wouldn't necessarily happen. So that's cool, but this is a very expensive bike to really have no chromoly. The forks have a chromoly steer tube, and that's the tube that goes through the frame, okay? But the legs are high tensile steel. So when you do a disaster, those legs are going to take that pressure and they're still going to bend. When you nose case a jump, they're still going to bend. I'd never really understood this innovation here. Either just go high tensile steel or go full chromoly. I don't think the blend is a good idea. It doesn't really change things. You know, it's still going to bend. It's still going to break. It's still not going to last like a chromoly forks would. The bars are also high tensile steel. The rims are single wall and it weighs 26.8 pounds. So it's actually a pound heavier than the primer. I don't know, man. Single wall rims, not even one. $500. So anyway, at the end, I'll talk about whether or not I'd recommend this bike and who it's for. But anyway, that is the quality of the Scout. Okay, let's talk about the geometry, because the geometry is a little bit different than the primer. Like I said, it comes in a 20.75-inch top tube and a 21-inch top tube. These are for taller riders. I'm 6'4". I ride a 21-inch top tube. If you're anywhere from like, I'd say 5'10" to 6'2", you're going to want to be on a 21 inch. If you're anywhere from like, I don't know, 5'6" to 5'10", you're probably going to want to be on the 20.75. But check out the size guide that I have on my website, Dougsterbob size guide, and check it out because it tells you how different sizes are going to affect your style and how it's going to actually affect your riding. This bike has a 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay. This is just like the primer. It's a pretty long chainstay. It's going to give you some stability. It's going to give you some control. The head tube angle is 75.5 degrees, so it's actually as steep as the primer park, which is interesting because that makes your steering more snappy and more responsive. So it's kind of going to balance out that longer chainstay and give you an average feeling bike. The standover height is 9 inches. Again, this is pretty average. The park versions are down 7.75 inches, so this 9 inch is going to give you more bike to pinch when you're doing toboggans or bar spins, and it gives you a little bit more stability, but not much. So let's talk about the Dougsterbob scores. So I'm going to look at it right here. We've got a 2.25 for the street section. We're going to round this down to a 2. The reason it got a 2 is it doesn't have pegs, it doesn't have hub guards. The quality just isn't strong enough to withstand big drops and big gaps. It's okay, it's a little bit better than the primer, but it's still not good enough to be like Sean Burns type street riding. You know what I mean? And you can't grind rails because there's no pegs. So granted, you can buy pegs, but it doesn't come with pegs out of the box. Now for park, we got a 3.67. We're going to round this up to a 4 because it's a little bit responsive. Like I said, the head tube angle is a little bit more responsive. The tires are a little bit better than the primer. It's going to be a teeny bit better for park than the blueprint or the primer. Not the primer park, but the blueprint or the primer. But it's still not the best. Like a 3 or 4 is not that good. In dirt, it also got a 3.67. So we're just going to round that up to a 4. This is because of the longer chainstay. The tires are a little bit better. Now, it's not the best. It's not designed for dirt. It's not designed for park, and it's not designed for street. It's almost really well-rounded in that aspect, just on the lower end of things. You can upgrade it to be more dirt specific. We want to look for dirt specific gearing. So like a 30-10 gear ratio, really good dirt tires, big geometry, mellow head tube angle, things like that for riding dirt, and it just doesn't really have that. So that's why it scored a 4. So this is a little nudge in quality. It got a 1.75, or we're going to round it up to a 2. So far, the primer and the blueprint only got a 1. So this is just a tiny bit better, and this is because of that chromoly down tube that we talked about. It's not the best, and the forks being a little bit of chromoly. So that's why I got that tiny jump in quality. But again, a 2 out of 10 is really bad, especially for a $500 bike. So the Scout got a 3.67 for the Dougsterbob score. This is not very good. This is pretty typical for an entry-level BMX bike, but one that's $500, like this tells me that the value is not there. Like this does not have very high value. The price to quality ratio is no good because it only scored a 4. So let's talk about some potential issues that you're going to get with the Scout. It's going to be really the same as the other low-end bikes. You're going to get it, you're going to progress, and things are going to break. It doesn't have full chromoly, doesn't have double wall rims, it doesn't have many aftermarket parts. So what happens as you progress, as you become a better mid-level rider or high-level rider, these parts are going to break. That's just how it works. So to counter that, you can buy upgrades. This bike is fully customizable. So if you want to upgrade your pedals, you want to upgrade your cranks, you can do that. Just be prepared. When you start getting too good, like you start posting stuff, you're like, I'm pretty good. Worry a little bit that your parts are going to start to break because it's not designed to withstand to that level of riding. The other potential issue with this bike is you getting ripped off. I feel like that's mean to say. And again, bikes in 2022 are a little higher price than they were in 2021. However, $500 last year would get you a kink switch with full chromoly, pegs, free coaster, like everything. $529 would get you a Sabrosa Letum, 4 pegs, 4 hub guards, like everything you need. $529 would get you a Sunday X with full chromoly double wall rims. And now this bike's $500 and it has one chromoly down tube. I'll rant about that later, but anyway, that's a potential issue, is you spending too much on a bike that's not very good quality. Now you're probably watching this video trying to figure out, is the Sunday Scout for me? And generally I have a good story for somebody, to describe who this bike is for. And the only thing I can say is it's going to be for a taller rider who's getting back into the sport. So if you're around that 6 foot area, you're not new to the sport, like you've ridden way back and you're getting back into it and you have a limited bag of tricks, this would be an okay choice for you. But the Forecaster this year is full chromoly and it's just a little bit more expensive. So I'm going to say save your money and get something different. I'm not even going to go through the who's it for section because I really don't recommend this bike, which leads me to the next section. I was going to try and lead into it. I don't recommend this bike because I think it's way too overpriced. There's nothing really specific about it. It's not park specific, it's not dirt specific, it's not street specific. So there's no reason to buy this bike over, the Forecaster, which is just a little bit more expensive, or any other bike that's near this price range with better quality. I really, really think this bike is overpriced and it could just be cut out of the line. Like the jump from the Sunday Primer to the Sunday Forecaster, it's about $100, but I think that's a better way to go than having this filler bike that's really not worth it. I hope nobody from Sunday gets mad at me, but I really don't think this is a good bike. Save your money, watch the Forecaster review, get the Forecaster, or even get the X. So the Sunday Forecaster is an almost $600 mid-level BMX bike. Finally, no more beginner bikes. The mid-level is something nice because I look for mid-level bikes when I'm recommending them to riders who have been riding for a while. Chances are people buy a beginner level BMX bike, they actually get good at the sport and they break it. So now they're looking for a mid-level bike. This is on the lower end of the mid-level bikes, but it is a mid-level bike nonetheless. It comes in 3 different top tube size options. It comes in a 20.5, a 20.75, and a 21. This is so confusing because every color is associated with like a pro, and some bikes have a free coaster, some bikes come in right hand drive and left hand drive, some bikes there's a park version, some bikes are like 579, some are 559, and it just depends. So instead of making a separate video about every single bike, because there's only some small things that are changed, we'll just talk about each one real quick, okay? So the $559 Sunday Forecaster in 20.75 and gloss raw. This is the Brett Silva version. This is the cheapest version. It's $559 because it has a cassette instead of a free coaster and it has the gloss raw paint job. Now the 2022 Sunday Forecaster Alec Simon version comes in a 20.75 and it comes in a hunter green. It comes with a free coaster. It's $579. The 2022 Sunday Forecaster Aaron Ross version. We love Aaron Ross. He's a GOAT. We love Aaron Ross. Okay. It's a 20.5. It comes in matte sky blue. It also has a free coaster and it's $579. The 2022 Sunday Forecaster Park version is Maka's version. It is a park specific one. I'll actually do a separate review on that, but it is $559 also. At the time of filming this, Maka is about to compete in Women's Olympics for BMX freestyle for Chile. So 1, it's super exciting. She's in the Olympics. 2, it's extra exciting. She has a signature Sunday bike. I don't think any women pros have that from their sponsors. So Sunday, good job. Supporting equality, supporting Maka, good job. Everyone else step it up, okay? Anyway, the 2022 Forecaster Brock Rayford version is a 21-inch top tube. It's $579. It also has a free coaster, but this one comes in a left-hand drive or a right-hand drive. I don't know how other sites are doing it, but Dan's Comp has them as 2 different products. So if you're ordering it from Dan's Comp, you can click the right-hand drive one or the left-hand drive. You have to select it and make sure you don't make the wrong choice. I ride left-hand drive. With the left-hand drive, what happens is your chain, your sprocket, everything's on the left. So when you catch tail whips with your right foot, it's nice to have that stuff on the left side so that it doesn't smack your heel. The only other reason you would really care is if you grind on the right side, you're going to want to have a left-hand drive because there's no sprocket guard, things like that. Or if you grind on the left side, you want a right-hand drive. That used to be the thing. It's probably not really anymore because people are grinding on every single side. But that used to be the deal. If you don't have a sprocket guard, then you want to grind on the opposite side of your drive system. All right, so now let's jump into the quality. This is a very important section because this bike is okay quality, but it's really not the best. Let me tell you why. The Forecaster, all of the models come with a full chromoly frame. So this is very cool. This is like the 2021 Kink Whip. Full chromoly frame. The forks are chromoly steer tube. They're not full chromoly, and the bars are high tensile steel, just like the Primer and just like the Scout. With the high tensile steel bars, high tensile steel forks, that's not the best. This bike does not come with any pegs, does not come with any hub guards, and it weighs 26.8 pounds. Everything on this bike is fully customizable and the bearings are fully sealed. So that's cool. It's decent quality, but it's not the best. Now let's talk about geometry. This bike is very similar to the Sunday Scout in terms of geometry. It comes in 20.75, 20.5, or 21-inch top tube. The chainstay is 13.2 inches to 13.5 inches. This is a little bit of a longer chainstay. If you slam the wheel all the way forward, it's going to be 13.2. If you have the wheel all the way back, it's going to be 13.5. So generally your chainstay length is going to be right in the middle there where you have your wheel tightened down. This is going to give you some stability and a little bit of control, but it's going to make spins a little bit harder. The head tube angle, though, is 75.5 degrees, which is steep. This is responsive. This is snappy. It's going to counteract the longer chainstay. And then it has a 9-inch standover height. This is pretty average. It's not too tall, but it's also not too short. This is about what most of them are. It's going to give you a little bit of stability. It's going to make it easier to pinch for bar spins or grab the seat for toboggans. All right, so in the street section, well, first, this is how we're going to have to break up the scores. So for the Forecaster, there's one bike that comes in a cassette, okay? But then all the other bikes come in a free coaster. So the Cassette's going to score differently in different sections because it doesn't have a free coaster, and the free coaster version is going to score differently in different sections. So I'm going to run through both of them real quick. Remember, the park one is completely different, so that's a whole different video. If you're curious about that, check it out, okay? Let's get right into it. The Forecaster Cassette is a 2.5 in street. We're going to round that up to a 3. It's got better quality, so it is okay for big drops and big gaps, but it's not the best. And it doesn't have a free coaster, it doesn't have pegs, and it doesn't have hub guards. So it's not the best for street. However, the free coaster version scored a 4.75. We're going to round it up to a 5. This is significantly better, and this is because it does have a free coaster. Now, I get it. Not everyone rides street with a free coaster. I ride street with a cassette, but the free coaster is going to make street tricks so much easier. Most street tricks. So this is going to help out new street riders who want to get better at street. So that's why it scored so much higher. In the park section, the cassette version and the free coaster version both scored 3.67. We're going to round this up to 4. They are okay for park. The tires are pretty good. The geometry is not the best. And there's no gyro. They do have gyro tabs, so you could put a gyro on, but they don't come with one. So it's not going to be very good for park-specific riders since a 4 isn't really that good. You can make some upgrades to make it a little better for park, but right out of the box, it's not the best choice. Now, in the dirt section, the Forecaster cassette version got a 3.67. We're going to round that up to a 4 because the gearing is okay for dirt, even though it doesn't have 30-10 gearing. Best case scenario, this bike would have 30-10 gearing. It would have really long chainstay like it does. It'd have a mellow head tube angle and a tallish standover. So you can upgrade it with better tires and things like that, but it got a 4. But the free coasters version got a 2.33. We're going to round this down to a 2. The reason it only scored a 2 is because it has a free coaster. And what happens when you ride dirt with a free coaster is it's really hard to pedal. And sometimes, not all the time, but especially for new riders, you're going to case a jump and you're going to have to pedal to get enough speed to clear that second jump. With the free coaster, you have slack. So you're going to pedal and you're going to smack your knee and you're just going to have a really tough time getting the speed that you need to clear the next jump. So the free coaster is really going to limit your ability to ride dirt. And the Dougsterbob score is a 4.2. The quality to price ratio is pretty good on this bike because it is a little more expensive, but it does have a lot better quality than some of the lower end models that were still priced really high. So that's why it's going to score a 4.2 on the Dougsterbob score. Overall, quality is better, but the price is fair for the quality that you're getting. So now let's talk about some of the potential issues that you're going to run into when you buy the Forecaster. Normally I'd say stuff breaking, and that's going to still be true. So the handlebars are high tensile steel. The forks are not full chromoly. They've got a chromoly steer tube. So you're going to land hard. You're going to land heavy, and your bars might bend. You might bail off your bike. It bounces around and runs into a pole or a bus. It's going to bend. Okay. Your forks are going to bend when you nose case something, but your core structure of the bike is going to be a lot stronger. I just want you to be prepared as you're progressing for a few things to break. It's not going to be as much as the things on the primer because this is a lower end mid-level bike, but stuff's still going to break, and you're going to have to be prepared for that. The only other issue I foresee is getting the free coaster version and trying to ride dirt, or not being able to ride a free coaster. The feeling is significantly different than a cassette. You've got to deal with slack. You've got to deal with a lot of different things. You don't have pedal pressure. You can't pedal pressure in a manual. You can't wheelie very good. There's a lot of things going on with it, and you need to figure those out. You need to make sure that you know what you're doing and that you've tested a free coaster before, because a lot of people get a free coaster bike and they say, oh, I wasn't ready for this. So make sure that you're prepared, and make sure you don't get a free coaster version if you don't know what it is. So I want you to tell me who you think the Sunday Forecaster is for. In my opinion, the Forecaster is going to be for a rider who is riding at a beginner level, but is just getting close to mid-level. So you're learning a good amount of tricks, probably 180s, 360 tire taps. You're trying bar spins. You're trying some of those mid-level tricks, but you're just not quite there yet. The Forecaster is going to provide you the quality that you need to take on those tricks and stuff not break all the time. It's still going to happen, but you're going to be able to do a little bit better with that. So if you're a fairly seasoned beginner rider who's starting to move into mid-level, you've got to be able to fit on the 20.5, 20.75, or 21-inch top tubes. You have almost $600, and you like Sunday. This is going to be the bike for you. It's a fair price, and that's kind of who it's designed for. Would I recommend this bike? Yes, I do recommend this bike, but only if your budget is right at $570, if you can't afford to spend any more on this bike, then it's a good choice. It's a much better choice than the Scout, and I think you should upgrade and get it. But if you do have a little extra money and you can afford the Sunday X and you plan to ride for a decent amount of time, I definitely suggest you just buy the X. The quality is so much better. It comes with full chromoly bars, forks, frame, everything that you need. The X is going to be a lot better than the Forecaster. But if for whatever reason you don't have any more money, I totally get that, the Forecaster is going to be fine. You're still going to get on it. You're going to get your free coaster version or your cassette version, your right-hand drive, your left-hand drive. There's a lot of options that you need to choose from, but it's going to be okay as you progress. All right, so the 2022 Sunday X, this is a great bike. It comes in two different color options, two different top tube size options. One has a free coaster, one has a cassette, one has 4-piece bars, one has 2-piece bars. It's a little different. It's really hard to call each bike the Sunday X because they do vary so much. However, they're both the Sunday X. When we get into the Dougsterbob score section, we'll have to do some distinguishment there. Is that even a word? I don't know. Because one has a free coaster and one doesn't, and that really impacts the score. But between the two bikes, the Julian Ortega version comes in a matte mustard and a 21-inch top tube, while the Eric Elstrand version comes in a copper drop color and a 20.75-inch top tube. The Eric Elstrand version is the one that comes with the Odyssey clutch free coaster, while the Julian Ortega version only comes with a cassette. Now, like I said, the prices are very different. So the Julian Ortega version is $589, putting it right under $600. But the Eric Elstrand version's $629, so it's a big price difference there. Let's talk quality. So the Sunday X is a full chromoly bike, chromoly handlebars, chromoly forks, chromoly frame. The quality is very good on this bike. So for anyone considering the Forecaster, if you have any extra money, go with the Sunday X. If you're considering the Scout, stop it and go with the Sunday X. Like just get up here because you get full chromoly bars, full chromoly forks, full chromoly frame. Aftermarket parts is just so much better, and I promise you don't want to end up where you do a big jump and your frame snaps in half or your wheel falls off. I don't know. One thing that really bothers me about the X this year is they define it as a pro level bike, but it doesn't have pro level parts package like the Sunday Soundwave or the Kink Williams or, the We the People Envy, anything really high pro level. So it's not a pro level bike. When you read that on their description, don't listen to them. It's still a mid-level bike, even though it is good quality. That's basic mid-level quality that it has there. Another thing that really bothers me is that there are no pegs. No pegs, no hub guards, and I feel like for that price, they could throw in some cheap pegs just so you're able to grind right out of the box. Is that too much to ask? Like literally, am I asking too much? Just throw some pegs with the bike if you're going to call it a pro level street bike. Anyway, it weighs 25.75 pounds, which is pretty light. Full chromoly, it's a high quality bike, just no pegs, and that makes me angry. Light bike, high quality bike. It's solid. It's solid. Let's talk geometry so that you know how this bike's going to feel and if it fits your style of riding. Like I mentioned, it comes in a 20.75 and a 21-inch top tube. This is going to be for those taller dudes. Anyone, anywhere from like 5'8" to 6'4" would be okay. Check out the Dougsterbob size guide. Just Google it because it tells you how each size will affect your style. If you get the one on the higher end of the spectrum, what that's going to do to your riding, what the lower end of the spectrum is going to do. Just check that out because that's going to help so much. And I always rant about this, but one of the most important things in the sport is getting the correct size. So you can get a bike that's not right quality for you, but if you don't get the right size, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And just make sure you get the right size, please. If you're a small guy, this is a good bike and it's really solid, but it's going to be too big for you. If you're really small, you need to be on a way smaller top tube, and getting a good quality bike at your size is going to be counterproductive. So make sure you get the right size. The chainstay is 13.2 to 13.5 inches, just like almost every single one of Sunday's completes this year. The head tube angle is a normal 75 degrees. It's not steep, it's not mellow. And then the standover height is 9 inches. So the geometry on this is pretty basic. It's very similar to the Forecaster, very similar to the Scout. Nothing too crazy. The longer chainstay is something that gets me because I feel like last year it was a little bit shorter and a little more responsive. This year it's that 13.2 to 13.5, so that's going to add a little bit more stability. And for the Sunday X, I need to distinguish a few things. We're going to break down the Artega version and the Eric Elstrand version just because of the free coaster and the cassette, and that has a big impact on it, okay? So first of all, in the street section, the Sunday X Artega version scored a 3.25. We're going to round that down to 3. The biggest reason that it scored this low is because it does not have a free coaster. The high quality of the bike helped it out quite a bit because it makes it good for taking on big drops and big gaps. But no pegs, one hub guard I think on the free coaster. I think I said earlier that it had none, but it does have one on the drive side or something like that. It's not very many and it's no pegs. So this bike isn't coming right out of the box perfect for street. However, the Elstrand version scored a 5.5, which I guess technically rounds up to 6. And that's because of the free coaster. So good quality bike. It's got good solid tires for street. And then it has that free coaster and, kind of a hub guard. But it's significantly better. And the reason for that is, well, not everyone rides street with a free coaster. Free coasters make a lot of street tricks so much easier. So that's why it's such a heavily weighted thing in the Dougsterbob scoring system. Now, in the park section, both of these bikes scored a relatively low 3.33, we're going to round it down to 3. They're not park specific. There's holes drilled for gyro tabs, but they don't come with a gyro. The tires are more geared towards street, not necessarily so much for park. Well, I mean, they're okay on park, but they're not designed for park. And the geometry isn't really responsive. It's a little bit mellow, and it's not park specific at all. Now in dirt, there's a little bit of variation. So the Artega version scored a 2.67. We're going to round that up to 3. But the Elstrand version scored a 1.33. We're going to round that down to 1. So there's a big difference there. And again, this is the free coaster coming into play. There's a spot that we ranked them because of their gearing. And 25.9's the standard gearing, and that's average. So if you get something like 28.9 or 30.10, it gives you a higher top speed, and it's going to make trail riding a lot more useful, or it's going to be a lot more useful when you're doing trail riding because you can get a higher top speed. Now, when you have a free coaster, this gets a low score in that part because it's really not very good. If you case a jump and you need to pedal to catch up speed to clear the next jump, that slack on that free coaster is going to give you a tough time. And it's just not going to work. So for dirt, I do recommend a cassette with, special gearing, with big geometry and a bunch of other things, which neither of these bikes have, but the free coaster kills it for the Elstrand version. What do you think are some potential issues that you're going to have with this bike if you were to buy it? To me, the biggest issue is going to be that it doesn't come with anything specific. This bike's really general and really basic. And I think a lot of people buy it hoping to be specific in one area, whether it's be specific as a park rider or dirt rider or street rider. The bike is really bland in that aspect, and it's not going to help you out in one discipline or another. Now, you can always upgrade it. So if you like street and you buy this bike, most people at the skill level to buy this bike have already decided what they're riding. And so you're going to have to buy this bike, and then you're going to have to make upgrades to make it better for what you actually ride. So if you like to ride street, you're going to have to buy this bike and add pegs and hub guards. If you like to ride dirt, you're going to have to buy this bike and add dirt specific tires, better gearing, things like that. It doesn't really come right out of the box specific for anything. And that's an issue I see if you're hoping that it'll help you in one area or another, because it won't. Who is this bike for? So the Sunday X is going to be for a mid-level rider, someone who's been riding for a little bit. They have some basic tricks down. They have a decent bag of beginner tricks down. They're doing probably 360s. They're working on bar spins, even tail whips. Grinding handrails would be nice, things like that. That's kind of the level of riding this person is at. They might have been riding a lower quality bike like the Sunday Blueprint or the Kink Launch, and now they're ready to upgrade to something better. Buying this would be a huge upgrade for you because it's going to come with so much more quality, and it's going to be able to hold up to that level of tricks that you're doing right now. This is not for a brand new rider because, to be quite frank, it's way too expensive for someone who's just getting into the sport and someone who doesn't know whether they're going to stick it out, whether, where they're at with it. It's going to be for somebody within the size guide because it's a 20.75 or a 21 inch top tube. It's not going to be for those smaller guys. And then this person has to have a fair amount of money to be able to afford it. So that's who it's for. Mid-level rider looking for an upgrade with a decent amount of money and that fits on a 20.75 or a 21 inch bike. Would I recommend this bike? Absolutely. If you fit the description of who it's for, I hands down recommend this bike. Even though the price did go up in 2022, this bike is still almost $100 more than the Kink Whip, kind of like it was last year. So I think it's a fair deal. It's a good quality bike, and I'm really happy that they put the upgrades, made that double wall front rim, and just the colors are kind of sick too. I like the matte mustard. I don't know if that would be a color that I would ride, but I think it's sick. And the copper drop's pretty cool too. So I would recommend this bike if you fit the description of who it's for. All right, so the 2022 Sunday Street Sweeper, Jake Seeley's signature model, comes in one really rad pink and purple color. It's not my colorway, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that love it. It's funky, just like the 2021 model. It's an oddball there. It comes in a left-hand drive and a right-hand drive. It weighs less than 25 pounds, and it scored pretty well in the street section on the Dougsterbob score. So let's talk about it. Like I said, this bike is $799. I saw it in stock on Dan's Comp. One thing that's really cool is that there's two different options there. When you go to the Street Sweeper or you search Street Sweeper, is the left-hand drive or the right-hand drive. So there's no confusion as to which bike you're going to end up getting. Now, one of the most important things to talk about here is the quality of this bike. The frame is full 100% aftermarket chromoly. So this is the same Jake Seeley frame, the same Street Sweeper frame that you would buy if you were just buying the frame. It is on this complete bike, and I think that's amazing. Now the bars are 4-piece, 100% chromoly, and the forks are also 100% chromoly. None of that chromoly steer tube nonsense. They're full chromoly. And the offset is 25 millimeters on the forks, which I think is cool. Usually if they don't specify an offset, they're closer to 32 millimeters. That's a pro tip for you while you're doing your research. So like the Sunday blueprint doesn't specify, chances are it's going to be a 32. We'll talk about geometry in a bit, but these 25 millimeter offset forks are going to make the bike a little bit more responsive and a little bit more snappy than the 32 millimeter counterpart. There was one really important thing I wanted to say about the bike, and I can't really remember. Oh, it's a free coaster, comes with a free coaster, and it does come with one plastic hub guard on the non-drive side. So I think they heard me complain about no hub guards on the last bike, and they said, you know what, we'll put one hub guard on here to make him happy. So I'm a little bit happier, but not much, honestly. I mentioned already that it weighs 24.7 something pounds. It's almost 25 pounds, and it's really hard to find a stock bike that comes in under 25 pounds. I remember back in my day when we were riding, we would do the craziest things to cut weight, and my goal was always 25 pounds. Like my bike was probably 28, 29, which sounds light to some of you guys who had the 40-pound bikes, but I always wanted to get it down to 25 pounds. And if you just buy the Street Sweeper, you're getting a bike with 25 pounds. You don't have to drill holes in your seat tube or anything. How crazy, right? The rims are double wall, and that's really it on the quality. Everything about this bike is incredible. They could have added aftermarket chromoly forks and bars to just step it up a little bit. However, the aftermarket frame is a really nice touch because they spend extra detail and just like extra attention to detail on those aftermarket frames, and it's going to make it a much better bike. For the geometry, this is a pretty responsive bike. It comes in a 20.75 inch top tube. And like I always say, please check the Dougsterbob size guide. Do not get the wrong size top tube. You can have the best quality bike, but if it's too big or too small for you, you're going to suck. It's just how it goes. And just make sure you get the right size. Please, 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 please. Other than that, the chainstay is a really important factor. It's 12.7 to 13 inches. So depending on if you have your wheel slammed, it's going to be 12.7. If you have your wheel pulled all the way back, it's going to be about 13. This is a responsive chainstay. It's going to make picking up manuals easier, but looping out is also going to be easier. It's going to feel really responsive and really twitchy, but not necessarily so stable and controlled. So if you're more of a technical rider, I like to compare Gary Young versus Garrett Reynolds. Garrett Reynolds is riding something like a really short chainstay like this one. Gary Young's riding something like a 13.3 or a bigger chainstay. And you can tell by their styles how different they are. That's kind of the riding. This chainstay is geared more towards Garrett Reynolds type riding than Gary Young riding. The head tube angle is 75.25, so a 0.25 of a degree steeper than normal. This combined with the 25 millimeter offset forks are going to, it's just going to feel a little extra snappy. Even though it's only a quarter of a degree, you're still going to feel it in the front end. When you're doing cornering or popping into nose manuals, it's going to twitch really fast. And I love this feeling, but it can be too much for some people to handle. I'm trying to think, the standover height is 8.85, which is pretty close to 9. It's a little bit lower than most, which is going to make it a little harder to pinch for bar spins or grab the seat for toboggans, but it's not the end of the world, and it's really not enough to make a huge difference. In the street section, the Street Sweeper scored a 6.75. We're going to go ahead and round that up to a 7. Now, so far, this bike has scored the highest in street than any of the other Sunday bikes, cheaper than it. So the reason for this score increase is one, the free coaster, that's good, and then the extra quality. So you want really good quality when you're riding street, because imagine jumping down a 10 stair and having your frame snap in half. No bueno, right? You don't want that to happen. So it is really important to have high quality stuff to withstand big drops and big gaps. This comes with the free coaster and it comes with one hub guard. And so, that makes it a teeny tiny bit towards street. Obviously, if it had 4 pegs and 4 hub guards, it would score a lot higher, but it doesn't. 7 is still really good and pretty impressive. Now in the park section, this bike actually scored a 5.67, which we're going to round up to 6. That's really impressive because this doesn't seem like a park specific bike. And it puts it actually with a street and a park bike on the higher end of things. You can ride street on this, you can ride park on this. It does not come with a gyro, but you could put a gyro on it if you want to. The reason for the 5.67 score is because of how responsive the geometry is. That shorter chainstay, that lower standover, that little bit steeper head tube angle is going to make it really good for responsive technical park riding, even though it's kind of a street bike. So that's cool. You can get this and it'll be really easy to upgrade it for street with pegs and hub guards, or upgrade it for park and make it a little more park specific. In the dirt section though, it scored a 2. That's it. Just a 2. This bike is not dirt specific at all, mostly because of the really responsive frame, the responsive geometry. You're going to have a hard time controlling it on dirt, especially if you're going high and fast. It's just going to want to twitch too much and it's so hard to control, let me tell you. It also has the free coaster, which is a huge disadvantage when riding dirt. Imagine you case a dirt jump, lose all your speed, and can't get over the second dirt jump. That's disastrous, right? So you're going to want to pedal to make up that speed and to clear the jump. But you can't really do that on the free coaster. I mean, of course you can pedal, but that slack is going to go in, it's going to take time to engage, and it's just not going to be a very fun process. So I would not recommend riding dirt on this bike, but everything else is pretty solid. In the quality section, it scored a 7. Very impressive quality. That's because of the aftermarket frame. It's really important to get aftermarket stuff because they put an extra amount of attention to detail and just a little extra love into the parts. They pay a lot more attention to it. It's less mass produced and it's just higher quality overall. So that's amazing. Double wall rims, amazing. Chromoly forks, chromoly bars, amazing. And a good amount of aftermarket parts. So this is a really high quality bike. $800 is a lot of money though. So we'll talk about that next, is like, who is it for and would I recommend it? But first we need to talk about some potential issues that I see with this bike. And the only potential issue I see is getting made fun of at the skate park maybe. For some reason people are still haters of like boys riding pink or wearing purple or whatever. And if you're buying this for your kid, granted it's probably like your kid's going to be too small for it in the first place. But if you're buying this for your kid, you might be setting him up for failure if he's a guy, I guess, assuming he's a guy and not a girl. I support buying it for your girl kid too, like, don't get me wrong. But assuming it's a guy, you put him on this bike, you take him to the skate park, you might be setting him up for some teasing and stuff like that. That's the only potential issue I see. I think it's dope. I would definitely compliment it, and I love the bike, but that's the only issue I see. Who is the Sunday Street Sweeper for? This is going to be for somebody who is not new to the sport, somebody who's been riding for a long time and probably been riding at a mid-level. I'd say you could reach, this to me is a high-level bike, and I'd say you could reach a high level of riding in 2 years with a lot of dedication. So if you've already been riding for about 1 year and you're getting your bars down, you're getting your whips down, you're getting your feeble 3s down, feeble 180s, ice picks, grinding handrails, things like that down, then you're probably ready to step up to a bike like this. This is one of the few bikes that you could buy and it would potentially last you another couple years while riding at a high level. Any other bike on a high level, it's going to break really fast. If you got the Sunday Forecaster and you're riding at a high level, it's not going to last very long. This bike can withstand that kind of riding. So I'd say you're a mid to high level rider, you need an upgraded bike with good amounts of quality because you're progressing at a pretty fast rate. You're going to have a lot of money. You're going to have like $800 set aside. I'd say $900 by the time you pay for shipping and some small swag upgrades if you want. $900 and you're really dedicated to the sport. If you're riding and you're like, I might like get a girlfriend and quit riding, or I might buy a car and sell my bike to buy a new engine, I don't know. then probably don't buy this bike because it sounds like you're not very dedicated. And buying a bike this expensive at this level of quality, if you're not really all in on the sport, is a waste of money and a waste of time. So make sure you're committed to it. But yeah, that's who it's for. Someone that fits on a 20.75 inch bike, riding at a mid to high level quality, $800 in the bank, and very dedicated to riding with dreams of becoming a pro one day. Would I recommend this bike? And the answer is yes. If it's the right size for you and you have the money for it, this is a really good bike. $800 is a lot of money. It puts it a little more expensive than the Kink Williams last year, but it's a great bike. And you can't get much better for this price, to be completely honest, actually, now that I think about it. If you'd have to spend another $300 to get anything close, and that'd be the Soundwave. The Soundwave is incredible, but that's a lot of extra money to spend. So for this price, this is a really good bike, really good option, and I definitely recommend it. All right, so the 2022 Sunday Soundwave. It has a free coaster version, a cassette version, 21-inch top tube, left-hand drive, right-hand drive, full aftermarket chromoly frame, forks, bars, and even cranks. Practically everything's full chromoly. We'll talk about quality later, but one thing that's so important to note right now is that each bike has a lifetime warranty. Yeah, on the frame, forks, and bars. And then on the cassette version, it doesn't have a lifetime warranty on the cranks since it doesn't come with the Thunderbolt cranks. But the free coaster comes with the Thunderbolt cranks. And you're probably thinking, that sounds good, but how much is it, right? Well, it's anywhere from $1,279 to $1,299. $1,300 for this bike, but keep in mind the lifetime warranty. This is one of the best bikes money can buy, aside from the We the People Envy. So I've been head to head with a lot of people arguing whether the Envy's better or whether the Sunday Soundwave's better. And I'm really curious what you think. So leave a comment. Let me know which one you think is better. But the free coaster version is $1,279. This is the version with the lifetime warranty on the frame, forks, bars, and cranks. The cassette version is $1,299. I think it's because that it comes with the caliber cranks, which are a little more expensive than the Thunderbolt. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. This one has a lifetime warranty on the frame, forks, and bars, but that's it. Keep in mind though, like everything on this bike is aftermarket. It's like you walked into the Sunday warehouse and just grabbed stuff. You're like, I want this frame, these bars, these forks, these wheels. It's got Odyssey Hazard Light wheels. Those are so expensive. This thing's mad impressive. So let's talk about the quality first. I've already talked about it. Aftermarket Sunday Soundwave V3 frame with a lifetime warranty. Aftermarket chromoly is 110% different than the full chromoly frames that you're going to find on the Sunday Forecaster or even the Sunday X. This thing has been made by OTX Designs with extra love, extra care, and a special attention to detail. It's a really solid bike. They did the same thing, the aftermarket bars, aftermarket forks with a 28 millimeter offset. So it's different than the Street Sweeper's 25 millimeter offset. The 28, I personally like the 28 more because it balances 32 and 25. It's not going to be too responsive and twitchy, but it's also not going to feel so sluggish like a 32 would. So that's good to know. You need to know that. But it's all aftermarket. It's just incredible. Odyssey Thunderbolt cranks, which are rumored to be some of the best cranks out right now, or Odyssey caliber cranks on the cassette version. It's like, you just get so much. Like you can go, I did a review post on Dougsterbob.com and I go a little more in depth about the spec stuff because this is more for people trying to figure out if the bike's right for them. So if you're curious about what I wrote and you want to check out the specs, go to Dougsterbob.com and check out the review post that I did. I'm not going to get so in depth on it here. Somebody said, you just read the specs. It's like, bro, I don't even read the specs. So don't come at me. But anyway, it's got all that stuff aftermarket. It's got the Odyssey Hazard Light rims. It's got crazy quality on the wheels, and it weighs 23.41 pounds. I was impressed with the Street Sweeper and the X being around 25. This thing's almost 23 pounds. The lightest, almost the lightest complete BMX bike out there. This is just crazy light. Having a light bike is going to make it so much easier to control, so much easier to maneuver. One thing that's especially important is that the weight reduction is probably rotational weight. And what that means is that your wheel is essentially a rotational weight. So that's why tubolitos are a huge deal. And that rotational weight affects the way that you spin and things like that. So Logan Martin riding his super light titanium bike is able to do 4 tail whips with a 360, right? It's because there's not that rotational weight there. So if you're sitting in a chair, you turn the wheel that while it's spinning, it turns you. That's what happens. And the effect of that is a lot less when it's lighter. So having a lighter bike really, really does help, especially if it's got a lifetime warranty on the stuff. People argue, well, if you're saving weight, you're sacrificing quality, but that's not the case with this bike. And I mean, you'd hope not, right? For $1,300, you'd hope that it's light and high quality. It comes with no. It comes with hub guards, but it does not come with pegs. The Sunday Darkwave, which is rumored to be out very, very soon, has 4 pegs, hub guards, everything like that. So this is a pretty decent bike. Doesn't come with pegs, but we'll let that slide. Okay, let's talk about geometry. 21-inch top tube on all of the versions, 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay, 75-degree head tube angle, and a 9-inch standover. This is very standard geometry. It's not really super flowy, but it's also not responsive at all. So you can see a big difference with the Street Sweeper versus this one. This has a little bit of a longer chainstay, which is going to make manuals easier to control but harder to get into. It's going to make spins a little bit harder, but overall the bike's going to feel a lot more stable. So this is good for, I'd say, older guys getting back into the sport because that stability is super important. And side note, like I say all the time, make sure that the 21-inch top tube is correct for you. I would hate for you to get the 21-inch top tube and only be 5'4". It's not going to be good. I mean, yeah, you can ride it, right? You could probably sit down and ride it, but that's not good. But anyway, the Soundwave, we're gonna break it up because the cassette version is gonna score different than the free coaster version. They're a little bit different, especially in terms of quality and things like that. The Soundwave cassette version scored a 5.75. We're gonna round it up to 6 in the street section. It's because it has really good quality. It has those hub guards, no pegs, and the tires are amazing for street. So it's a pretty decent bike for street, although it's not the best. And that's why the free coaster version scored an 8. So this one is obviously quite a bit better for street because free coasters are going to make the street tricks a lot easier. Not all of them, but most of them. Most street riders are going to be riding the free coaster. It makes a lot of things easier in the streets. So that's the scoring difference there. They both scored the same for park. They scored 4.33. We're going to round it down to 4. They're not really park specific. The geometry is not responsive enough, and it just doesn't have anything pushing it towards a park specific bike. So that's why it scored a 4. Now in the dirt section, the scores varied quite a bit. The free coaster version scored a 2.67. We're going to round that up to 3. And the cassette version scored a 4. So as you know, free coasters are not built for dirt riding. They're going to cause you a lot of headache, especially if you case and don't have enough speed to clear that second jump. You're going to try to pedal, you're going to hit the slack, it's going to engage, or whatever. It's just going to be a mess. Okay. So that's why it scored about a point lower. However, neither of these bikes are really great for dirt. I'd say the cassette version would be okay to ride dirt on because it's a little bit bigger, a little bit more stable, but it's not super dirt specific like something like the We the People Revolver or the Fit Trail would be. It's okay, and it's definitely better for street. The cassette version, I think you could balance all 3. I think you could ride a little bit of park, a little bit of street, a little bit of dirt. While the free coaster version is obviously going to be best for street, but not so good for dirt. Good news though, this is the first bike in 2022 to score a 10 out of 10 on the quality. They get extra points if they have a warranty, which these bikes do. They get extra points if you can choose between left-hand drive and right-hand drive, which these bikes do. If they're aftermarket chromoly versus normal chromoly, The scoring system's crazy, but these bikes got a 10 and it's really hard to do. There's not many bikes that score that high. The Soundwave Special Free Coaster and the Cassette version are insane quality, as you've heard me talk about. I think the Revolver is the only other one to get that. It's hard to do, and this is very impressive. And then the Dougsterbob scores are 6.85 for the cassette version and 6.6 for the free coaster version. This is a really high Dougsterbob score. Almost no bike scored higher than this. And it's damn near impossible to score a 10 for the Dougsterbob score. It's practically impossible because if you have a free coaster, you get points in one area and not points in another area, and so on and so forth. So 6.8 is crazy high. As you can tell by the high quality, the high price tag, this is a great bike and the value is there. I get it. It's very, very, very expensive, and it's totally worth it though. And that's the thing that the Dougsterbob score determines. A high score means the price to quality ratio is solid. A low score means you're probably getting ripped off. So this is a great bike. Now, some of the potential issues that I see with this bike are virtually none. I really have a hard time believing that you're going to run into any issues with this. The only thing that might happen is you get the free coaster and you have no freaking idea what a free coaster is like to ride. It's going to have slack. You might pedal, you might smack your knee, you might engage when you're faking. Free coasters, you need to get used to them. So if you're experienced with the free coaster, you're solid. But if you have no idea what it is and you're thinking about getting that version, do a little bit of research first and just make sure it's right for you, because I'd hate for you to get a free coaster and then hate it and have to buy a new back wheel. The only other issue I see is kids with a lot of money want the best of the best of the best buying this bike. This is a 21-inch top tube. It's for taller people who are like 5'9", 5'10", all the way up to 6'4". So if you're smaller than that and growing really fast, maybe you can grow into it. But I don't think this is a good move. It's so expensive, and that time while you're growing into it is going to be wasted because you're not going to be able to progress as fast as you should. Who is this bike for? So the Sunday Soundwave is for someone with a good amount of money. Usually it's kids whose parents run a business, or kids who, one kid who bought it last year through my reviews, he has his own little lawn mowing gig and he makes good money, and he's like, I want the best bike. And it's like, bro, you're 13, you got more money than me. But anyway, here you go. Here's the best bike. So it's for someone with a good amount of money. Usually it could be guys that are returning into the sport, people who rode back in the day. You got a real job, got responsibilities, and now they're getting back into it. But more importantly, someone who cares about quality. You're probably riding at a pretty high level, but always planning to ride at a higher level. This bike is one of the few complete bikes that I would confidently say you can buy it, ride it for a few years, and have no issues. Any other bike, you're going to run into issues early on or as you progress with it. This one, you can confidently say no issues. So if you're like, you just want it and you don't want the headache of changing your cranks every once in a while or putting new bars on, this would be a good choice for you. So essentially, someone with a lot of money, someone with plans to progress, and someone who just doesn't want to mess with it, doesn't want to be fixing things all the time and worrying about that headache. The last question. Now, would I recommend this bike? Yes. Absolutely yes. If you have the money, this is one of the best bikes you could buy. It's either between this one or the We the People Envy. The Envy comes in a 20.5, which doesn't really matter because this is an Envy review. But yes, I recommend it. One of the best bikes you could buy. Money well spent, especially if you don't want to worry about your bike breaking. I think this is an incredible deal and an incredible bike. Oh my God, that was a lot of talking. So many bikes, and it's so fun to run through each bike and watch each one progress. I hope this helped you figure out which bike is best, and I hope you consider clicking the link in the description to shop all of the 2022 Sunday bikes from wherever has the best price. Probably going to be Dan's Comp, but you never know. I want you guys to get the best price on the bikes. I don't want you guys to get ripped off, and I want you guys to enjoy BMX. It is so fun. I could tell you so many stories. You'll just have to tune in for one of the lives to hear me rant about how this sport has literally changed my life. So good luck on your bike buying journey. Subscribe if this was helpful to you and let me know what you thought. Don't forget about the free bike recommendation and the Dougsterbob score sheet. Both of those things are in the description. They're going to save you so much time on your bike buying journey. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your bike once you get it. Peace.